So, our first speaker
Devilishly
of the day,
handsome.
Devilishly handsome.
Master of ceremonies.
I think hopefully everybody in this room has had an opportunity to meet him. I had the pleasure of meeting him last year in Cork, and actually something that was so special about the time was there was a moment where we were in the pub. It was maybe 20 of us in a corner all together, sat listening, sharing stories. It was one of the first moments that I really discovered like the value of someone's time and how much you can learn by just listening, like actively listening and asking questions. And it was with Mr. Sean Finter. So, someone beyond success. Yeah. We could go through so many wonderful accolades, but this man over here, like from the age of 26, had already traveled around the world. From the age of 27, had opened his first bar, and I think he has some even more better accomplishes that he did from like the age of 11 or something. Maybe. But I'm going to let him tell his story. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sean Finter.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, good morning. I wonder if anyone had the experience I had this morning and you wake up and think, where am I? You know, waking up at an Irish castle. That was my first question. And my second question was like, how did I get here? You know? I think I look back at the last even 6 or 7 weeks of my life. 7 weeks ago, I was in Dubai for the first time. Ali and I went out on a camel in the desert, riding four-wheelers and connecting with friends from all over the world. A couple of weeks later, we were in Montreal, speaking there, eating poutine with friends after midnight. Last week or the week before, I have no sense of time, so that's why I've got some notes throughout the day today. We were in Jalisco, Mexico with friends, and it's just amazing to me, you know, what's possible in this industry. And this morning I get an hour to talk to you about how my life is possible. You know, I think even what I just mentioned and some of the success that I've had is statistically impossible if you look from where I started. I grew up in a small town in Canada. This town, Middleton, I just read, has 14,000 people. My town had 2,000 people. Nobody in the town that I knew of that had ever traveled anywhere. Lots of horses, and you either owned horses or you mucked the stalls. My family mucked the stalls. You know, but I'll cover with you here just quickly are we going to do the coffee? I think it's coming. They asked, you know, why Jameson Irish coffee is one of my favorites. I've got 4 kids, and it's the only cocktail you can order at 7 a.m. and get away with it with your kids. So, grab a Jameson Irish coffee and try that with a Mai Tai with your kids, and they start asking if Dad's okay. If I had a resume, I've never had a resume. I had a business card for 1 year, and I found out people email you and call you more than you want, so I tried to stay mostly anonymous. But if I had a resume, I kind of ran the gamut like a lot of you in the industry. I tell my kids to this day, one of my favorite jobs was washing dishes. It was the first thing I was ever good at. You know, I was really proud to do it. The guy that I work for, I'm going to talk about in a minute, but he told me I was the best dishwasher he ever had in 30 years of business, and that meant a lot to me, you know? Yeah. Kind of taught me at a young age you could be good at anything, you know, just really lean in. I was a manager. I became a bar owner, as I mentioned, at 26, right before my 27th birthday. I bought a distressed asset for $1 and a bunch of debt. And I turned that into a business, a viable bar and restaurant in Sydney, Australia. And over the next couple of days while I'm here, I think I want to say now, I'm going to mention a lot of stuff to you today. And I've been to a lot of talks with a lot of speakers, and I always think, I don't want to bother them. I'm here to talk to you guys and share whatever I can. So I'm going to give you all I can in an hour, but I'm here for a couple of days with Ali, and honestly, anything we talk about, we want you to have. We want you to, you know, take from us. We've got tools, and I've got a lot of experience in certain areas, a few areas. My group in Australia turned into 8 bars and restaurants. So I acquired 7 more. I learned a mechanism. You know, I see people investing millions of dollars in a place for their first place. I don't get it. I'd rather kind of take a third-gen space and turn it into something and fill it with hospitality and see if it works, and then maybe buy the $25,000 chandelier. I never did that, but people do. That little group turned into a $33 million company, which we sold, which, you know, I'm very proud of. I'll talk about the numbers in a second. I founded a company called Barmetrics. Some of you may have heard of, off our kitchen table when I still had the bars. I did not want a software company. I did not want to be in inventory control. I didn't even want to be in consulting. I just needed some of these tools to run my business more efficiently, so we developed them, and it turned into a company much bigger than I ever thought it would be. I wrote a book called Business of Bars, which turned into something much bigger than I ever thought it could be. And now today I've got a business small enough that I love it, doing the things that I love. I just coached today. I work with 25 to 40 entrepreneurs, bar and restaurant owners, and senior management every year. What qualifies me to speak on the subject of mentorship? I am a pure product of mentorship. I would not be here without mentorship. I learned to read when I was 21 years old. I didn't graduate high school. Everything I've learned from my mentors and my peers and wonderful companies like Jameson who invested in me. So I had my first mentor at the age of 12. I became an owner at 26, and therefore I started to mentor a lot of my team. And I had my first business exit at 33. When I went to Dubai, that was the 38th country that I've spoken in around the world, which is remarkable to me. My parents have only been to 2, and 3 when they came to see me in Sydney. One of the faux pas maybe in life, but certainly in speaking, is talking about personal finances. And I'm going to do something today I've never done before, because I think we need to talk more about our success and our failures so that people have perspective on, like, what's that really worth, or what's it really cost you if that happens. And I'm going to do both today. I'm going to talk to you about some of the costs that's cost me and my family on pursuing business goals and personal goals, and some of the success I've had. And I don't know how many, but I've mentored well over 100 people, maybe 150 people over the years, and I've coached, which is just a different type of mentorship. You actually get paid for it, which is cool, but you're transferring experience and knowledge. And I've always had both. I've always paid for coaching, and I've always had mentorship in my life. Some of the numbers, again, like when I got into business, I didn't know how much money a bar owner could make. I had no concept. If a business does $3 million, how much do you make? If it makes $7 million, well, it all depends, right? My little restaurant company, we did $120 million in sales and averaged 18.6% profits. And then we sold that for a multiple, right? Bars and restaurants can be really profitable if you engineer them to be profitable. Given that 80% of them fail, there's a reverse cost on that, right? You're actually paying for the pleasure of your pain to suffer through. And I'm happy to sit down with anyone and explain the difference on how you engineer a business. Barmetrics did, while I was there, I sold it after 21 years, but we did $160 million, and we didn't sell anything but IP and knowledge and reports and so on and so forth. We didn't have a bottling plant or any of that good stuff. I had a company called Pulse with one of the brightest guys I've ever met in my life. He didn't work in this industry. He got in here. He's like, Sean, I'm in heaven. Like every bar I go to, people know us and invite to these events and everything else. He became a big fan of the products that we sell, drank a lot of those, was introduced to cocaine one night, and that was the end of the partnership. So it doesn't always work. So that was a bit of a disaster, not only financially, but reputation-wise. You know, you bring someone in, and I was doing a lot of business with public companies, and you got to be careful of who you get into business with and make sure that you've kind of got the guardrails on the relationship. And I mentioned Business of Bars. One of the things I'm most proud of is a book that I wrote, and we took it around the world to 55 countries. And really my idea was to kind of give away the IP, and doing that down the eastern coast of Africa and Southeast Asia, and it was just amazing. And I'd say that, you know, my current business is a lifestyle business, which is what I wanted. It's just Ali and I and a little bit of support, but you know, my past businesses kind of outgrew me, and I'm just not that big into reading contracts all day and sitting with lawyers and everything else. But anyhow, none of that would have been possible without mentors. So I want to share with you guys my recipe for it, and that's all that it is, right? I'm not writing a prescription. I'm not saying this is the only way to do it. I hope that you're going to hear some things and say, yeah, I could use that ingredient and make your own wonderful meal with that. So I hear a lot of people, especially I'm in the entrepreneurial community as well as the hospitality community, and I hear a lot of people talking about self-made millionaires. I've never met one. I've never met anyone who got rich on their own, right? I think that at best, we're all community made. And to the degree you can tap into your community, I think is the degree that you'll have success and the velocity to get there, right? Without, you think about some of the most famous people in history. Steve Jobs had mentors. Oprah Winfrey had mentors. Like every autobiography that I read, the first chapter they talk about where they got this knowledge from and how they moved through the world in life. And I believe this. I tell my kids, if you're not where you think you should be in life, it's that you're playing a solo sport, right? No one gets there without a team around them. So I think there's a lot of doors in our lives that we could walk through. For me, I've learned 3 times in my life that bad things happen in threes. So when 2 bad things happen to me, I'm just waiting for that shoe to drop. So 11 years old, turning 12 back in Canada, things weren't going well for me. They had just found out, because I was pretty good at lying, they had just found out that I couldn't read. I was good at cheating off other people's papers and having pretty girls help me with my assignments, but at some stage, and they ask you to read out loud, and they discover that this kid can't read. And the automatic move in the school system is to hold the kid back a year, which would have been devastating for me. So my parents were fighting to keep me in the school system. Secondly, I was introduced to my new defense partner. I played hockey in Canada, and this kid moved to my town who in the future would become a Hall of Fame defenseman. And when you're suddenly beside someone who's destined for greatness, like you realize the discrepancy between your talent, right? Like up until then, the best guy in front of me was 10 or 20%. Like this kid was literally twice as talented, and he was a year younger. So really, for the first time, it didn't inspire me. It took the wind out of my sails to realize these are the people that move on, right? Maybe it's not guys like me. And then thirdly, because things were going so well for me, my parents said, this would be a good year to tell him that he's adopted, right? So that kind of takes out your whole family structure and your belief system. And I'm like, wow, this is a fucking disaster, right? Like, my father's a great guy. He's still alive. I love him dearly. And he said to me, Sean, like, you need a mentor. I'd never even heard the word before, right? I'm like, what's a mentor? And he goes, someone who's going to help you in ways that I can't. The description he gave me that most made sense to me is he said, you want to find someone who's been where you want to go and they're on their way back, right? You're going to meet them there and they're going to help you get back down that path. So my first mentor, age 12, owned a truck stop in my town. In small town Canada, the wealth of the town was marked back then by how many Cadillacs that town had, right? A lot of towns had no Cadillacs. There's a lot of shitty towns at the time. My town had 2 Cadillacs, which was pretty prestigious. Mr. Panu's Cadillac and Mrs. Panu's Cadillac. So one family that owned a greasy little truck stop had 2 Cadillacs. There we go. That's the noise the Cadillac made, actually. That's right, yeah. Mr. Panu would come to work every day like the old school diners. You guys know them, right? The white on white and the aprons, and you're covered in grease and everything else. I'm like, how does this guy have 2 Cadillacs and a hobby farm, right? So I got a job working for him. And he's just an amazing man. Very few words, but everything he said mattered. So I went to work for him on day 1, and he asked me at the interview. He asked me, where I wanted to get to in life, and at 12 years old, I'm thinking, fuck, I'd just like to get a job. He asked me how school was going, and I said, not very well, sir. And he said, what are you doing about it? And I said, I don't know, I'm just trying my hardest. He asked me if I liked the town that I was living in, and I said, first time I lied in the interview, I said, yeah, I really like living here. And he goes, well, how are you supporting the town? And I'm thinking, fuck, how old do I look? I'm 12 years old. How am I supporting the town? I'm not allowed to cross the highway, without my mom. And then thirdly, he asked a question that really cut, and I was so angry at him, I nearly started crying. He said, well, how are things going at home? And if you're in a town of 2,000 people and your dad's had a nervous breakdown and he hasn't been outside for 3 months, he knew exactly how things were going at home. And I looked at him and I said, I think you know how things are going. And he said, well, what are you doing about that? And I was lip quivering, and I said, man, I'm 12 years old. I said, I don't know the answers to these questions, and I just want a job. And he said, hey, I get that. Why don't you think about it? And when you've got the answers to my questions, come back and see me. So my mom's waiting in the car outside. It's freezing cold, and she's got the engine running, and I come out, I burst into tears, and I'm like, that asshole, you won't believe what he asked me. And I told her, and she said, well, why don't you get the answers to his questions, and I'll bring you back next Saturday. He interviewed every Saturday morning. So I went back, thought a lot about it, talked to some people. I realized there's a lot of mentors, right? That wise old neighbor, maybe a guidance counselor at school, maybe your older sister. And I talked to a lot of people. I went back next Saturday morning, sat down. He said, have you got the answers to my questions? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, okay, give it to me. And I started to talk, and he said, no, pass it to me. He wanted a piece of paper. And I'm like, well, you didn't ask me to write it down. He goes, I'll see you next week. Come back and see me again. I thought, fuck, I don't know if I want to work for this guy anymore, right? It's a fucking lot of work. Not even getting paid yet, and he's busting my chops. So anyhow, I took a piece of paper, and I wrote down, how are things in my community? How would I like them to be? How could I contribute? School, my family. And I came back, slid in the booth, and he said, have you got the answers to my questions? And I said, yes, sir, I do. And I passed it to him. He didn't even read them. He put it in his pocket, and he said, let's go to work. And I thought, fuck, is he ever going to read this thing? We go into the dish pit. He gives me an apron. I don't know if you guys remember the first time you walked into a commercial kitchen. I'm just like, holy shit. Like, look at even the dishwasher was worth way more than our car, right? And he said to me, Sean, I'm going to spend the day with you here today and get you going, because he said, this is the most important position in my restaurant. He said, everything starts and ends here. Everything's going to be perfect and fast, and you're going to be on top of things. And you're like the intel. He said, you'll see it. We could change a cook, and the plates will start coming back with more food on them, right? The fries are a little bit burnt. He said, you see this stuff, and you got to talk to me. We got to relay. You got to be the quarterback with the servers out front. When they're short, you got to be able to jump on the floor and everything else. Well, I progressed through that truck stop from the dishwasher to prep cook, to working in the kitchen, to working up front. And each time he said to me, this is the most important position in my restaurant, and here's why, right? And it just taught me a lesson that every position is the most important position. And you got to make everyone feel like it's the most important position and treat it that way. So he was an amazing mentor to me. He introduced me to written goals. How many people in the room have their goals written down? Okay, I'm telling you, it may sound corny, it multiplies your chance of success. Having your written goals, my written goals are in the top pocket. I only took them out of my pocket because they're in my bag right now. Because if I see someone that might be able to help me, or if someone comes to me and says, this is what I'm trying to accomplish, we've got a great starting point for me to give you something valuable as quickly as possible, rather than just have a chit-chat. He introduced me to written goals. He introduced me to values as well. I was in the you guys know, you have here the whipped cream, what's called like Ready Whip. Anyone remember the first time they ever had that? Remember the first time you ever had cocaine? Similar, right? I tasted Ready Whip, and I'm like, oh my God. I just couldn't believe it. To this day, it's probably the most sensational thing I've ever put in my mouth. So someone put some on my hot chocolate, and then they put me work in a dish pit with a walk-in cooler with 2 cases of this stuff beside me. It's all I could think about. I would dream about it at night. It was like, sure enough, I'd start sneaking in and stealing, right? Having a little bit of this stuff in my mouth. And Mr. Panu walks in one day, and there I am with this can in my mouth. And he said something to me that always stayed with me. He said, what you do when no one's watching decides your future, right? And he would say that to me all the time. And up to that point in my life, I cheated. I fucked around when no one was looking. I just did everything opposite to how I should do it until I was being supervised, which meant my potential was this big. And he said to me, dude, work harder when no one's looking. Do your best when no one's looking, and I promise you things will work out. Right? So this is what mentors do. They ingrain in you a different operating system than you currently have. He also said to me that everyone that worked for him had to master one fundamental of business. An unsexy skill that's universal. Again, remember, I'm 12 years old. He says, Sean, I've selected you for inventory control. I said, that sounds awesome. When's that? 4:44 on Sunday mornings, every other Sunday morning. I'm like, 4:44. He had these unique times so that you would remember. If he told me 4:30, I might be there at 4:35. 4:44, you're not going to be anywhere else but in that room with him. I got in there, learned to run spreadsheet. He had the old school calculator, back and forth. Think about that. I went on to have the largest private inventory control company in the world, right? Because of what I learned from him when I was 12, 13, and 14, and 15 years old, right? That's what a mentor can do. And now you might say, well, he was your boss. Yeah, he was my boss. He had a function as my boss, and he was a pretty tough boss, but he also had a function as a mentor. And that's what my father was wise enough to know. Put yourself beside greatness and ask for more responsibility than you deserve. And then work like hell to make it work. And when you fuck up, and you will, make it up. Make it up. Just do more than you were asked to do and keep going through. So, what is a mentor? I think it's important, different people have different meanings. There's a formula for life, I believe. Like I mentioned, some of the greatest entrepreneurs, some of the greatest athletes, Socrates and Plato were mentor and mentee, right? It's been around for thousands of years. In a business sense, I think we've been doing business in a very similar way for about 200 years, and it's starting to change now. It's going to change dramatically with AI, but we've done it this way for about 200 years. So the good news is there's still a formula for everything. Mentorship wasn't what I thought it was, right? Mr. Panu made it pretty easy for me because I was 12 years old. It's different when you're an adult and you want time and experience from someone who is, 30 years down the track from you perhaps, tens of millions or hundreds of millions further down the track than you, so it's different than what I thought. And here's how. Firstly, I find my best mentors ask more questions than they give you answers. All right, so if you're looking for a mentor to give you all the answers to your problems, it's probably not going to work. They're going to ask you really difficult questions that make you think, and it's going to kind of answer the questions that you had in the front of your mind. They often point at your blind side. And if you don't think you have a blind side, you've got a big one, right? We've all got a blind side, and they're situational, right? So you might have been a rock star here, and now you're in this environment, and your mentors will help you kind of see around the corner and realize you don't have some of the skills or experience that you need. And what I find frustrating about mentors is they say no a lot. They ask you to say no a lot. They want you to focus, right? They say the difference between millionaires and billionaires just say no a lot more. They just do their one thing over and over again and make it faster and stronger and bigger. Millionaires like me, there's a shiny thing and they grab it and they gravitate to different aspects in life. How many people in the room have a mentor right now in their life, a formal mentor? Okay, we got a great opportunity here for you guys, a really great opportunity. How many people in the room are a mentor? Mentor others? Okay, wow, almost the equal amount. Okay, good. Today, so every year in my life, at around the Christmas holidays, I think about, what's next for me in the upcoming year. I have 2 to 3 formal mentors in my life every year, and have done since I've been 12 years old. So Taki Moore is one of the best business coaches in the world. He coaches me. He happens to be a good friend of mine, but he's the best coach I've ever known. He pushes me, gets me to think outside the box, does some great things for me. I have 4 kids. Ali has 2 kids, so we've got 6 between us. Pat Cooley is one of my best friends. Good American Irish Catholic. 10 children, all 2 years apart. Think this guy knows something about parenting? Yeah. His toughest day is my best day, or vice versa. He's something. And I'm at a point in my life now where I'm really thinking about, what's active retirement look like? I'll never retire because I like what I do. And Derek Coburn, a friend of mine and a mentor of mine in Washington, D.C., just wrote a book for anyone at that point in their life, or maybe your friends are or family. It's called Let's Retire Retirement. It's his theory on what we should do, and it's a very clever book and a refreshing look. So I encourage you not only to have a mentor, maybe you have 1 this year or next year, and then you have 2. You get to a point where you have 3, and again, these are different aspects of my life that are important to me. So types of mentors. You might have a mentor, just someone who can help you get unstuck, right? Someone who's wise, who's been where you want to go. You might ask them for some time. This is one of those resources I'll give you guys. I have a one-page form that if you fill it out, you will 10x your time with someone who's got wisdom in front of you. It just helps you think through what you want and get really sharp on it so that you could sit down at a cafe and spend 20 minutes. Of that 20 minutes, you're going to spend 2 minutes and you're going to give them this form but you're going to add color to it, and they're going to spend 18 minutes giving you what they've got. I get asked a lot, say, hey, can I buy you a coffee and pick your brain? Having your brain picked doesn't sound very good. Neither does getting into a coffee shop and spending 20 minutes and then thinking, what the fuck does this person want? I have no idea what you're talking about, or I'm like, how can I help you? What do you want to do? And they want to solve everything all at once, and it's just, you got to get really focused. Formal mentors are what I just described. You might gain a commitment of 6 months, 18 months, probably a max of 2 years. You might meet monthly, and I'm going to give you a structure on how to do that and to engage in that meeting and get the best value. And then there's a forum, and a forum is teaming up. Another thing I suggest, like this room, my God, if I were like doing some of the things you guys are, I'd walk out of here with a commitment of 6 or 7 people to get together once a month on Zoom. I'll give you the form on how to run those meetings, kind of best practice share, but like what's working, top 1%, what's not working, bottom 1%, some best practice, and then someone who's really stuck, let's divide up the time to see if we can help them. I can give you the form to do that. I do it every month. It's the best hour of my month, other than spending time with Allie, of course. And she sets up, that's the only reason I do it, she sets up the call. Otherwise, I'd be in a Zoom room by myself, as I often am. She's like, you're in the wrong fucking room again. It'll all work out. So mentors, I just want to give you guys a sense of, some of the big goals in my life that I wanted to get some help with. So reinvention, I'm going to talk about travel. At some stage, I'd never been anywhere. So I didn't want to go somewhere. I wanted to go everywhere. And I wanted to figure out how to do that. How do you afford it, right? Most people travel and they come back with a credit card bill of $8,000 and then have regret for the next 6 months till they pay it off. I found a way to do it. I went to 26 countries before I was 26 years old, right? Paid for, did it, traveled, did the whole deal because someone showed me how to do it. For my health, while I was a bar owner for 10 years, I weighed 300 pounds. Went from being a competitive athlete to being a competitive Coca-Cola and Red Bull drinker. I still remember my first Red Bull. Fuck, I love that stuff. It nearly killed me. So I found someone to help me with health. Public speaking, right? How do you do that? The first time I was asked to speak publicly, I didn't sleep for 3 days. I vomited twice before I went on stage. That's not the best way to do it. Find someone who's done 300 talks and get them to help you break it down and figure out how to do that. Career advancement. You want to fast track your career, and instead of taking 3 years to do this, well, who's done it in 1 year? What did they do? What's the structure to it? How do you build into it? How do you transition? Relationships. You want to have a better relationship? Get with someone who's got a relationship you admire, right? Talk to them. Find out what they do, what they don't do, what the formula. Pat Cooley, I'm like, how did you stay married with 10 kids? And you know what he said, one of his tools? He said, our QMI saved our marriage. I said, what's a QMI? He said, we have a quarterly marriage investment. Every quarter, just her and I, him and Michelle, go. Ideally, it's away. They both love the hot weather, and we live in Maryland. But it could be a staycation. They're going to go to DC, Philadelphia, New York City. And he said, we go away for the weekend. No friends, no kids, just the two of us. And we talk, and we think, and we laugh, but there's 2 hours over the course of that weekend. He said, we both get a blank piece of paper. On one side, we write what's working in our relationship, and we flip it over, and we say what's not working in the relationship. Then Michelle gets an hour to talk about both sides of her page. He said, it's the hardest hour of my quarter, right? Just to sit there and not respond to it, not to defend yourself, not to fight back, not to say, yeah, but. When she's done, after the hour, he circles one thing that's working, and he says, I can do more of that, right? I can lean in 10%, 20% more and do more of that. On the backside, one thing that's not working, he said, I'm going to commit to making a change in this area here and see what I can do. And just he reminds himself, right? And they do those two things. There are tools and routines that people that have things that most don't because of these tools and routines. This is what your mentors can teach us. Fatherhood, I just mentioned that. Global expansion. I had a little business in Sydney, Australia. I got together with 7 people that wanted to expand their business globally. Within 2 years, 6 of the 7 went globally because we, as a group, 7 of us, got one mentor that had done it, and we followed the formula. You know how hard it is to take a business global? You know, we went in 8 countries, 26 cities around the world. Impossible without mentorship. And the group of people doing it is the accelerator, right? That's the gas on the fire. You know, and hopefully you have a heart that allows you to be happy for your peers and not jealous. And you see, oh, that worked. And oh, that you failed 3 times, and then you made this little adjustment, and on the 4th try, that happened. Okay, now I know. Now I'm going to try that, right? And then family, you know, having kids and routines. I've got a whole bunch of stuff on family if any of you have kids. You know, for me, it was even figuring out as a father, you know, what's your purpose as a dad? You know, and I thought, what's my purpose? Well, I want my kids to be safe and happy and healthy. No, that's what you've got to do. But what do you want to accomplish as a father? And for me, it came down to instill confidence in those kids. Because with confidence, you can do anything. Not arrogance and not being cocky, but just having the confidence to say, I'm willing to fail 7 times and still believe in myself in hopes of succeeding on the 8th time. And I can tell you that I'm naturally wired to reduce confidence in young people. Or not in young people, but in my children. Because I want to protect them. I want to take things out of their way. Well, you can't develop confidence if your dad's a helicopter dad. You can't develop confidence if your dad backs down every time you say, oh, Dad, that's embarrassing, don't do that. You know, we have a routine that we go through. So, divorce. Anyone been through one of those? I do not advise it. You lose half your shit, and then you lose half your shit that you were left with to your lawyer. So you have a quarter of your shit, and then you drank so much that, no, you lose that. When should I get a mentor? I've never met anyone who I've said, wait till next year or 2 years from now. Get a mentor now. Think about what you want to do. You know, if you've got big goals and you want to get in the fast track, get a mentor. Why not? It's not exactly free. It doesn't cost any money. It takes time. It takes humility. It takes persistence. But it doesn't cost any money. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't you do that? If a Harvard degree was going to help you advance and you're going to get into debt $500,000, a lot of people do that. You know, I have friends that went to Harvard, that 3 of them combined, I make more money than them. If you want to make money, if you want to have a lifestyle, if you want to do something, get a mentor and figure out how to do it and take the fast track. Another thing that I work with my mentees and I share with my mentors is that I don't believe in work-life balance. I'm the least balanced person you'll ever meet. I believe in work-life momentum now, right? I can work my ass off to get this going here and get this generated contracts team in place, and then I can take 3 months off if I want, right? So I believe more, but that's me. I don't want to work 8 hours, you know, be awake with my kids and travel for 8 hours and then sleep for 8 hours. That's just not me. I'm bigger on this. But when you look at having personal goals, having your career goals, having your family goals, and this says family, not children, right? So if you've got parents that are aging, right? My parents are mid-80s now, so like past life expectancy in Canada. But I started thinking 10 years ago, I thought, I hope they live till 85. And a friend of mine said, how many times a year do you see your parents? And at that point, it was once a year. It was, man, you better make it count because you've only got 9 more visits with your folks. I was like, holy shit, you know how that changed my life? When I walked in the room before I got there, I thought, I better be intentional about this. I better start asking better questions. I better start capturing information that I want my grandkids to know. I better start letting them know exactly how I feel before they start to decline and they won't know what I'm saying. Right? So I have family goals. And I've got community goals. And our industry needs a lot more people with community goals. Who can we help in this industry? You guys, if you're in this room, all of you could and should be mentoring someone else, 2, 3 people, 5 people in your city, maybe. Right? So I've got a video on this. If you guys want it, I'll give it to you. In the middle here is a catalyst. So every year, I'm like, what one thing could I do differently to make these 4 things possible? Right? So sometimes it's like, Sean, you're moving too slowly. You're collecting too much data. You have paralysis. So just start making daily decisions. Sometimes it's like, hey, I need to go back to I'm making a lot more mistakes than I should. I need to get another mentor around me to help me navigate. So whatever it is, you figure out that catalyst, and you have a big shot forward. So as I mentioned, with family, instilling confidence. I'm writing a book at the moment, remembering things. Terry Fox is one of my heroes. Ran almost across Canada before he passed away with one leg. It reminds me with my health. He had back then a terrible prosthetic leg that would bleed every day. He'd run a marathon a day, trying to raise awareness for kids with cancer that were being mocked for being like little monsters because they were losing limbs. And he said, I'm going to show you how capable we are and run a marathon a day. It reminds me I can get my fat ass out of bed in the morning and do some exercise. If Terry could run a marathon every single day of his life. Quick warning here, though. If you haven't had a mentor and you get a good mentor, it's quite possible they're going to push you way outside your comfort zone, right? You might be saying, yeah, I need that. Well, wait till it happens, right? Like, wait till you get thrown into the water and it's cold and you're like, holy shit. But this is what I believe, right? This is where the magic happens, right? This is my life for the last 30 years. Because I got out of my little town, it would have been pretty safe for me there. I had a lot of friends. I had people that would help me. I could have been a foreman in construction or, I don't know, maybe manage the truck stop one day. But it was time for me to go. These are just a few quotes that caught at the time and stayed with me from my mentors. I was looking to go from 3 restaurants and bars to 5. And one of my mentors said at a board meeting, is this to benefit the business or your ego? Right? I hadn't optimized my current portfolio. And I had this opportunity to do this thing, and now I would have had 5 bars and restaurants. I would have been a big shot. My friends had 2 or 3. Now I'd have 5. And I slowed up and did the work and went from 5 or 6 or 7% profit, staff that weren't terribly happy, customers that weren't rating, to let's slow down, let's get our systems in place and figure out how to take this to the next level. Another mentor of mine in a board meeting said, I can see 25 ways this fails and only 1 that it works. Right? So he said, show me 3, 4, 5 more ways that this works, Sean, because you're not that good, right? Like, I don't know many people that could pull this off, but I know a lot of people that'll go down with the ship if you do this. So again, this is one of those blind spots. And one of my favorites, fuck your feelings, follow the plan, right? Sometimes you get anxious and nervous and you put all the work in and you brought a lot of people into your vision and they're like, this isn't working, it's too hard, I don't know if I can do this. And they're like, no, go, just 10 more steps. 5 or 6 steps later, we're getting momentum. If you're wondering what a mentor can do for you, I'll share with you what some mentors did for me. Just want to keep on time here. Tony, is this accurate? Yeah. First, besides Mr. Panu, I had a guy named John Pallon that lived in my town, moved into my little town from the big city. And he helped me reimagine my entire life, as crazy as that sounds, right? And he said this to me one day. He said, everyone that loves you lied to you. Right? He said, people that love you want to protect you. So when you start to stretch for big things, they don't want you to fall. They say, hey, Sean, don't be unreasonable. Sean, you're a dreamer. Sean, that's for other people, not for us. Right? And he said, all these people are lying to you. That's not true. He also said, never take advice from a 30-year-old that drives a rusty Pinto. My teachers. Also helped me to rewire my brain. And sometimes we need that. So at the time, need to change your beliefs before. So these are a few things that I really needed to rewire my brain in. Education. I thought, I'm stupid, I can't learn. And he said, no, you can't learn that way. The education system is only built for about 15 to 20% of the people that are in it, right? A lot of the rest of us have to learn this way. Mentorship, apprenticeship, volunteerism, so you can get in and just get some experience that you wouldn't otherwise get. I had to rewire my brain regarding rich people. For some reason, one day he asked me to come with him to deliver 5 turkeys. Is this just small town, or you guys ever go deliver turkeys? Anybody? No, it's just small town Canada. He wanted me to come deliver 5 turkeys, and I agreed, and we went to all these people's houses and gave the turkeys and met their wives and whatever else, and it turned out to be a really good day. And I went inside of houses that I'd driven by hundreds of times, right? These big mansions, and at the end of the day, he said to me, Sean, what are those 5 houses? What do those people all have in common? I said, they're really rich. And he goes, and what else? And I said, I can't believe how kind they were to us, to him. He's the guy with the dirty apron. I'm the kid washing dishes, right? I realized rich people aren't assholes. Not all rich people, some are, but not, some poor people are assholes. But I realized, I'd grown up thinking that we got to stick together, the poor and the rich are assholes and they're holding us down. It's not true. It's just not true. And he showed me in a day. That's what mentors could be. Big city, I thought crime, whatever else, I learned it wasn't the case, and people like me, poor, muck in stalls, can't read, all that sort of stuff. He helped me rewire my brain and said, it's all bullshit. You've made up a story, and you've attached meaning to it, scrap it, move on. Try something new. Reinventing myself was really fun. That was London. They said, hey, you can go anywhere in the world that you want to go, right? You can do anything you want to do. I got to London, and my mentor there, Paul Fitzgerald, one of the most successful guys in the restaurant system at the time, said to me, I'm going to give you 3 months, and I want you to find someone in this company. I'll let you work at multiple different stores and find someone you want to model after. And I said, well, what does that mean? He goes, man, it's way easier to model after someone than to start with a blank page, right? He said, you can model after them, leave what you don't want, take what you do, learn from them, get experience beside them, have them watch you do it, course correct you. He said, it's always the last 10%. Right? We think we got it, but you need to get your reps up and then get that last 10% in, and they'll let you know if you've got it, then you can move on to the next. Right? There's a formula for all this stuff. We got to put ourselves in the right place. And I've always liked the idea that, like a mentor, it costs nothing to light someone else's candle with yours. Right? It doesn't take away from the original candle when you help somebody. It's time, but I can tell you, as a mentor, I get as much from the relationship as a mentee. You learn a ton when you're able to look through someone else's eyes and watch through their experience. So to get started, just 3 steps with getting a mentor. Think big. Have a big goal, something you really want to do in some aspect of your life. And it can't be, I just want to be more successful. Like, what does that look like? Specifically, what does success look like? Then you got to be clear. You got to let them know, so this is what I'm trying to achieve. Because a lot of people come to me and I say, I'm not your guy. But I know people. I know a couple people that might be able to help you with that. And you got to be persistent. Some of my mentors, I asked for their help 30, 40 times. I don't mind hearing no. I just know that's one step closer to yes. And I will wear you down. I got time. Framework for this, the 5 C's. What you're looking for in a mentor, they got to have true competence in the area that you're going. Don't spend time with someone who's just smart, but spend time with someone who's had success doing exactly what you want to do. Secondly, the character matters, right? We're all different, and there's some deal breakers. We have values, and we have anti-values. Don't get mentored with someone who has anti-values. I was with a guy, a business mentor, was out with him. He looked like the perfect, and the minute we get out, he's complaining about things. He's got a woman there who I thought was his wife, his girlfriend, this, that, and I just said, hey, this is my guy. This isn't someone who I want to attach myself to for a year or two. So look for the character that matters. They have to have confidence that you can do what they've done. It's hard to hear. Some people have said to me, I don't think you can do it. And I'm willing to argue my case, but there has to be some sort of belief that they can help you and you can be helped in that area. There has to be a connection. Right? Like some of my mentors, all of my mentors are still friends, are still people I admire, I love. So having that connection, for me anyways, the way I'm wired, really matters. All of my mentors who have helped me, of course, I've gone back and said, what can I do now? How can I help you? And in one way or the other, they all say the same thing. Just pay it forward. That's all they want. I can't give anything. Some of these people are so successful, right? They don't need anything from me. They don't want anything from me, but they want me to help others. And for me, it's important that there's compassion, right? I mentioned a few of the tough quotes, but behind that, there's some love and kindness and everything else. And the mentor-mentee relationship is very special. It's very fragile. And you don't want to be out on a ledge and have someone push you off or throw you in the deep end. It's important, I think, to have compassion. And then really quickly, the 5 stages. I think this is important because you may have a mentor for life. I never have. It kind of builds and it wanes over time. I prefer going into it knowing that it's going to end. It's not like a romantic relationship that evolves over time and let's see where it goes. So these 5 stages, rapport building. You got to give it time in the beginning to build some rapport so they really understand who you are, how you operate. Secondly, getting that direction set, right? Saying, I know I said I want to do this, but these are the external factors and you want to make sure that you're clear. You got to have time to make progress, right? This typically happens like month 3, 4, 5, 6, right? None of this stuff works overnight. Then there's a winding down period for me. I'm doing the work. We're having the meetings once a month maybe. And then it's moving on. I want them to know that this has ended. I appreciate it. I want to stay in touch, be friends and all of that. But the thing that frustrates a lot of people that I know that mentor is they don't know if it's over or not, or if they're just taking a break, or if they're struggling, or whatever else. I believe it's up to the mentee to really communicate, where we're at and how things are going. So with that in mind, being a great mentee, your job is to make it easy. If you're asking time for someone who's, successful in an area, make it fucking easy. Keep it simple. Some of my mentors, I've literally, to get beside them, I've taken a flight from DC to Seattle to get to spend a couple hours on the plane and then flew right back, right? That's me trying to make things easy. Vulnerability and transparency, I think, are the 2 keys to it. Don't bullshit your mentor, right? That's just, doesn't make any sense. So just be vulnerable, let them know where you're at, where you're struggling, and give them transparency. Don't be embarrassed. Don't think this guy's going to think I'm a loser or this lady's going to think I'm a loser because I'm struggling. Just lay it out and be really clear. Most importantly, do what you say you're going to do, or tell them why you didn't do it. This is where I break with most mentees. I don't want to be involved in your life for a chat session once a month. I don't want to hear you say 3 months in a row that you're going to do something that you don't do. I have no interest. I have children. They do that. They drive me fucking crazy, right? I don't need a mentee clogging up my system. So just do what you say you're going to do, which means don't say things that you're going to do something you're not going to do. And then single-page summaries. As much as I appreciate some mentees give me a 28-page report, I don't read it. I'm like, fuck, I don't have time. Just give me a single page. Let me know what's going on, what worked, what didn't work, what you need help with, where you want to focus. And then finally here, for you guys, I encourage, especially in a room like this is a room of very special people in our industry. I really want to encourage everyone to be a mentor. I promise you there's somebody within 10 miles of where you work that needs your help and that would greatly value, even 6 months. Try it out and see what you can do. Put yourself out there on social media and say, hey, I went to this session, I listened to this guy ramble, and I'm willing to mentor 1 person or 2 people. And let's try it for 6 months and see if it works. If you decide to do that, you really want to set clear guidelines, right? Like me, once a month, maximum an hour, better 45 minutes, 1-page summary to get started. Any pre-stuff you can send in advance. Let's keep it simple. Typically 1 issue you want to work on a month. Just simple, clear guidelines. Expect progress, results, and failures, right? Like that's what happens. You either had progress, you got the result you wanted, or you failed. Okay, cool. Which is it? Let's be clear, and let's figure out what we're going to do to move you forward. And then you want to finish strong. If you're going to do 6 months with someone, do it. Spend 6 months, and then off you go. And then finally here, mentors wear a lot of hats. You know, you're going to be a teacher, a sponsor, an advisor, an agent, a role model, right? You wear a lot of hats for these folks. Being a mentor over the years has made me better. Just realize you can't be that messy guy at the event, or you can't, be making a mess of your own life or whatever it might be. And it feels really good to show up for somebody else that you've invested in. I tell you the way I'm wired with the people that I've helped over the years, and I'm very proud to say, I've helped over 20, maybe 23, 24 people go from where they're at in their career, kind of struggling, to being financially wealthy and able to retire and so on and so forth. I've helped dozens of people go from being an employee to being an employer. Help people take their kids who were in public school in a dangerous area into private school, whatever it is that they want to do. I get more joy out of that than my own work, right? I find it not easy to do my own work, but it's predictable. With them, they've had struggles, and it's just a beautiful feeling to be able to help them. And then a coach and a confidant, right? You want to be the person who you can say to somebody, you can tell me anything. Don't tell me anything illegal, and people do tell me illegal shit all the time. I'm like, I realize what a country bumpkin I am every time I talk to someone and they tell me shit, and I'm like, oh, I think that's illegal. So my hope for you guys today is that you're inspired to be both a mentor, maybe in a more formal relationship with somebody, and a mentee, right? I just think, why not, right? It's just out there. It's more valuable. It's been way more valuable to me than a Harvard degree, right? And a lot less time and a lot more fun. Who wants to go to fucking Harvard? Man, they wouldn't have me, but they're hung up on the high school diploma thing. I'm like, fucking hell, So the three hopes for you guys in closing is kind of reimagine your life. I've always bought into living life on purpose and with purpose, right? A lot of people just kind of blow through life. Having a mentor and written goals really, forces you in a way to get organized, to invest in yourself before you have others look to invest in you. Secondly is to get a mentor. And finally is to be a mentor. And with that, I think we're going to take some questions.
What characteristics should we look for in a mentor, and how can we tell if someone is truly a good mentor?
Yeah, well, I'll answer the second part of that first, and how you know if someone's truly good. You don't until, and I want to say that, like, I could be a great mentor for Maria, but I might not be for David, right? And it's just so you're in the right rhythm and right space. But like I mentioned, looking at those 5 C's is a good way to kind of analyze, do they have confidence in you, their character, and so on and so forth. Not everybody makes a good mentor. I think everyone can contribute to our lives, but really getting that right formula is like a 10x. I've had really, really good mentors that I didn't have quite that connection, and it added a lot of value to my life. And then a year later, I've got that right fit, and it's a 10x sort of feeling. And when you do have that connection, like your mentor, like they want so much for you, right? Like you might get lucky. I had a mentor who was president of a global public company. And imagine the doors he opened for me. Not that I asked him to. I never asked him for a connection or anything else. But he believed in me, and I told him what I wanted, and he goes, this is how you get it, and I need you to fly to X and meet this person next week, right? So do your research, and then take a chance. And if it doesn't work, give it 2 or 3 months, and if it doesn't feel right, just say, okay, thanks, I've got what I need, I really appreciate your time, and move on, right? It's not an exact science.
Do you or have you had any female mentors, and would you recommend diversity when seeking mentors?
Yeah, so if you guys, can you hear what the questions are reading? Yeah? So the question was, have I had female mentors? I've had many female mentors in my life in a less formal way, but 2 formal female mentors, and 2 of the best. And I don't think it's because they were women, they just had experience in areas that I needed. Actually, maybe one was maybe in part because she was a woman, and I was, she just had a different perspective on the world that I needed at that time in my life. And she was tougher on me than most of the male mentors I'd had after that point. So yeah, I think diversity is important. I think the experience that they have in the places they've been, and how they accomplished it. right? I've looked to some mentors and like, I passed on one relationship in particular, and this isn't me being modest, I just realized this guy is like 10 times smarter than me, and I just don't think I could get to where he got to with the equipment that I have, right? So I need to find someone more in line with the country bumpkin, hardworking, aw shucks. So yeah, I would look to, I would not have any boundaries on who your mentors are, their sex or their nationality.
The next one is, where do you find a mentor?
Yeah, good question. So where do you find a mentor? You know, people say they're everywhere, but that might not be true, right? They're around. I think you have to develop an ability to cycle and to start to think outside the box. I've found a lot of my mentors by going to people I respected in my community and said, this is what I'm looking to do. And I'll give you guys that video on how I shaped that, and you can put that page down in front of anyone yourself. And I'll say, is there a person or two or three people that come to mind that you think might be able to help me here? And sometimes you get lucky and they're like, oh my God, I know these two people, and you do your research and you ask them to go for coffee. It's like dating, right? You go to coffee, you tell them what you're up to, and you know, for me, it was, especially in the early days, it was a matter of convincing people that I was worthy of investing in. And I don't mean to sound terrible, but it's true, right? Like, no one wants to spend their time on a guy who just wants to chat at a coffee shop every fourth Sunday. So do your research. I developed spreadsheets. Now, I study a lot, and you know, besides the industry, I was a member for 22 years of Entrepreneurs Organization. So I get exposed to a lot of people, and I've got like 25 people in line that I'd love to talk to about being a mentor in the future, and I find a couple new ones every time I come into an event like this.
What does your work day look like these days?
Well, like I say, I finally developed a lifestyle business, and it's kind of a precursor to, you know, semi-retirement, I guess. Now, you know, when I sold Barmetrics, it was actually really tough for me. I didn't think it would be, but and I stayed at the dance probably 3 or 4 years too long. You know, that guy at the dance, dancing by himself at the end of the night, and all the girls have left, and that was me. Right through COVID.
Flashback, right?
Yeah, that offer I had 6 months before COVID, I still think about that. So, you know, but I had developed a business. Let me say it this way. I developed a job for myself that I didn't like. I just didn't like. I was suddenly going to places I didn't want to be. I was doing things I didn't want to do, and I was spending time with people I didn't want to spend time with, right? That to me is not success. That's the opposite. So when I sold the business, I learned two things. One, that I wasn't nearly as popular as I thought I was, because my phone didn't ring for like 3 days, right? A couple of congratulations, but the 150 calls I used to get a day were just putting out fires. So I took some time, you know, COVID was handy, right? To have a few years in my underwear at home, just looking out the window. And yeah, back on the Red Bulls. And a mentor of mine said to me, I want you to put together a list of like the 3 things that you would do if you never work for money again. Like, what would you do to keep busy and keep active? And I said, well, I like to do this sort of thing. So I said, I like to speak and connect with my industry. Secondly, I like to write. So I'm writing 2 books at the moment. And then thirdly, I said, I want to coach. I want to share what I've learned and help people kind of navigate through, not just professionally, but personally at the same time. And that's what I've done. I've developed that business. And the commitment is like 3 or 4 hours a week. On the weeks that I want to work, I'm off for 2 weeks. You can just take holidays whenever you want if you own the company. And but it's only like an hour on Tuesdays, an hour on Thursdays, and whenever I want to write. So it's the dream life for me. And then Ali and I travel all around the world.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Exceptional.
Oh, thank you very much. All right, thank you guys.